the elevator had gone crazy. Dozens of people crowded into the elevator. An old man noticed that it didn't stop at their floor. Before anyone could react, the elevator suddenly shot upward. Everyone panicked, screaming in fear. Pressing the emergency button didn't help at all. One boy was so scared he peed his pants right on the spot. Suddenly, the bottom of the elevator opened like the mouth of a demon, devouring the passengers. A few people desperately grabbed onto the railings, but several of them slipped and fell into the darkness. The elevator continued its rapid ascent, and the next second, it crashed right through the rooftop. This wasn't the first time the elevator had killed people. Earlier that day, a blind man wanted to use the elevator. He had a guide dog by his side. When the elevator door opened, there was nothing but empty space. The blind man didn't realize this danger. The dog barked anxiously, trying to warn him, but the blind man couldn't understand the warning. He stepped forward into empty air, tightly holding onto the dog's leash. The weight difference was too great, and tragically, the dog was pulled down along with him. Security guards sensed something strange was going on. When they arrived at the scene, the elevator doors wouldn't open, but suddenly, they mysteriously opened on their own. A guard shined his flashlight inside and saw the poor guide dog from earlier. Just then, the elevator doors suddenly slammed shut on him. He struggled desperately, and his partner behind him pulled with all his strength. It was useless. The elevator began moving, slowly descending. The trapped man panicked, begging his partner to save him, but the man, terrified, just covered his face and cried. In the end, the security guard couldn't escape death. A series of accidents quickly caught the attention of the media. The supervisor called in the elevator technicians, Mark and Jeffrey, but after inspecting everything, they found nothing wrong. The elevator resumed service as usual. That day, a group of pregnant women walked into the elevator after a yoga class. Suddenly, they noticed the elevator was descending way too fast, and the next second, it slammed to a stop. The women were thrown to the floor. Meanwhile, the building security also noticed something strange. This was already the third malfunction that week. They quickly contacted the on-duty maintenance crew. Inside the elevator, the pregnant women tried to call for help, but there was no sound from the emergency phone. Even their cell phones had no signal. The elevator started getting hotter and hotter. They pounded on the doors, yelling for help. Finally, the maintenance workers arrived, but the elevator doors refused to open. It was like the elevator was possessed. The temperature inside kept rising. Suddenly, one of the women screamed in pain. She was going into labor. Then another woman's water broke. Someone even fainted from the heat and panic. A security guard rushed over with a fire axe, trying to break the door open, but the technician stopped him, fearing it would make things worse. As they argued, the elevator suddenly began to descend, but the power had already been cut. Everyone was completely confused and scared. They rushed to the ground floor, and when the elevator doors finally opened, they were stunned. The sound of crying babies filled the air. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt this time. Mark returned to inspect the elevator again, but every system showed normal. Just then, a reporter named Jennifer approached Mark, hoping to get some inside information. Mark simply told her, "No comment." Mark and Jeffrey suggested shutting down the elevator temporarily so they could run more detailed tests. But the building's owner, Mr. Milligan, immediately rejected the idea. This building was a famous local landmark, and it welcomed tens of thousands of tourists every day. Mark and Jeffrey had no choice but to walk away in frustration. That day, two young guys were rollerblading down the street. Soon, they skated into a parking garage. One of them accidentally got hit by a car. He looked up in fear and saw the windshield wipers standing up by themselves. Weirdly, like something was wrong. Suddenly, the elevator doors behind him opened by themselves. A bright light flashed from inside. The guy was pulled into the elevator as if swallowed. Then the elevator shot up at high speed, rising all the way to the 86th floor. With a loud splat, his body was thrown out. The thick glass and metal railings didn't stop him at all. He landed right in front of his shocked friend. The police arrived quickly. They ruled it an accident, but no one could explain how the 12-centimeter thick safety glass shattered so easily. That same day, in the building's daycare center, a door somehow opened on its own. A little girl slowly walked toward an elevator, but the doors suddenly closed before she could enter. She turned to the elevator on the other side. Again, the doors closed suddenly. She ran back and forth a few times, confused. Then, the middle elevator door opened slowly. The elevator started rising by itself, leaving a strange, narrow gap at the bottom. The girl bent down and peeked inside. Just then, her teacher heard the noise and rushed over. Luckily, the girl wasn't hurt, but the doll in her hand seemed to be crushed by something unseen. Later, the building owner, Milligan, stepped into an elevator. Suddenly, a drop of red liquid landed on his shoulder. He looked up. Something dark was moving above the ceiling window. Out of nowhere, a man's body dropped down onto him. Milligan screamed in terror and crawled out of the elevator. At that moment, his secretary walked by. She saw the body and was horrified. To their shock, the dead man was Mark's colleague, Jeffrey. Just like that, The building finally had a scapegoat. Jeffrey was blamed for all the recent accidents, but Mark didn't believe that nonsense for a second. After he went back, Mark started reviewing all the files and blueprints. At the same time, reporter Jennifer found him again. She brought a videotape in her hand. It was the security footage from the parking garage, the exact moment that guy was killed. But the creepiest part? From the moment the guy got sucked into the elevator to the moment he was thrown out, it took less than 2 seconds. But a normal elevator would take at least 40 seconds to reach that height. Mark and Jennifer finally had a real clue. The documents showed that the elevator's designer was a man named Steinberg, an expert in both biology and computer science. But he was dishonorably discharged by the military for illegally using government resources. And that same man just happened to show up at the press conference earlier that week. To get to the bottom of it, Mark decided to sneak into the elevator shaft. He connected the backup power, and the elevator slowly began rising floor by floor. On the wall of the elevator shaft, he found sticky, slimy fluid, like something had been crawling there. He pulled out his tools and pried open the control room. Suddenly, he saw it, a beating heart, connected to a tangled web of wires. This had to be the source of everything. Mark raised his knife and stabbed the heart hard, but right then, the elevator above came crashing down. It was racing straight toward Mark. At the last second, he rolled out just in time. Mark grabbed a rocket launcher. He was going to destroy that freakish heart for good. But out of nowhere, a gun was pressed against his back. It was Steinberg, the designer of the elevator. Mark quickly knocked the gun out of his hand. They began fighting. At one point, Mark almost got thrown into the elevator shaft. At the critical moment, Jennifer showed up. Mark took the chance and reached for the rocket launcher, but Steinberg threw himself in front of the heart. He was ready to die for his life's work. As the three stood in a tense standoff, a steel cable suddenly shot out from behind. It wrapped around Steinberg's body and dragged him into the darkness. Then the cable grabbed Mark too. Just in time, Jennifer kicked the rocket launcher toward him. Mark took aim at the heart and fired. Boom! The heart exploded into pieces. Mark was blasted backward, and Steinberg finally paid the ultimate price.